Good evening. Making a video a little bit later than I usually do. Today looking at a Pink Floyd best of compilation. Might be a few of those, but this is one that was released in 2001 and it's called Echoes. And you see it's a double disc, 2 CD, and I got this for $1. 2 discs, $1. Probably got this about a year or two ago. Can't remember exactly when. And I don't recognize that sticker because usually if I look at the sticker, the price sticker on the CDs, I can um, usually know which store I got it from, but that one I'm not sure. Anyway, 2 CDs, and it's in pretty good condition. There's no visible cracks, and thank God the 2 CD thing actually works. The teeth hold the CDs in relatively well. I'm sure if I put a little bit of force, one of them might fall out. But I've talked before about how often the backside on the 2 CD flip up is so often uh, unable to keep the CD secure, and it kind of falls out and wiggles around when you move it. Um, so Pink Floyd are a band that in some ways I think don't really need a best of because I don't know, all their albums work together as a whole so well, and taking bits and pieces out and putting them into a best of thing, I think in some ways diminishes the songs, or at least to an extent. But as far as best ofs go, I think this is a pretty good one. And not just because of the selection of songs, making a selection of the best of Pink Floyd songs is always going to be hard because you're always going to have to leave something out. But the way that this was produced, um, they, whoever compiled it, I think they said James Guthrie compiled it. I'm not 100% sure who James Guthrie is. He is an engineer who worked with them quite often, with Pink Floyd quite a lot. But I don't know beyond that, uh, is he of note in the other way? But obviously, if he's a if Pink Floyd chose to work with him, then he must be pretty good. But anyway, they got him to compile this. Now I don't know if this was him, but the music all runs together. It's separate tracks, so you can skip the tracks. But I mean, as a sound, they're what's the word, blended or mixed together. Um, they fade into and out of each other, and they do that in different ways. Different songs use different effects. Sometimes it's just a simple fade out and fade in. But I think it's quite an interesting way of approaching a compilation of a band that has a lot of songs, because like I said, I think there already are a few best ofs, and so looking at trying to approach it in an original or different way or creative way is kind of cool, I think. Um, so what do they choose? This isn't no, it's not chronological or anything like that. I'm not actually sure how they decided to make the track list run order, but you see it's a mixture of all eras. It's got stuff from Sid pre-Gilmore through to the end of Sid into early or not early, the post Sid, and the explosion of fame through the 70s into the 80s with The Wall and Final Cut, Dissolution, and then into the Roger Waterless Pink Floyd era, which uh, some people feel a certain way about. So just looking at it, so we got Sid to start off, first two tracks. Happiest Days of Our Lives, which is a much later, that's a Wall era. Wall. So it's kind of jumping around. So we go like Piper at Gates of Dawn. And what's Piper at Gates of Dawn as well, isn't it? See Emily play. Then the Wall again. Echoes is Middle. Hey You, Wall. Marooned was from the Division Bell. Great Gig in the Sky. Obviously Dark Side of the Moon. Set Controls for the Heart of the Sun. Was that? Middle. No, that was Source of. I think that was Source of Full of Secrets. Which I'm not 100% sure about that. I'm confused. Money, Dark Side, Keep Talking, Division Bell, Sheep, Animals, and Sorrow. Sorrow was what's the other one in the 80s? The one that had Learning to Fly on it. Learn to Fly, not Learning to Fly. Momentary Lapse of Reason. So they're really jumping around there. There's no chronological order whatsoever. Was there another reason? Was it more about the sonically how he thought they went together, James Guthrie, and the way he decided the tracks? I don't know. And it's similarly on the second disc. You've got Shine on Your Crazy Diamond, so that's Wish You Were Here. Time is Dark Side. Fletcher Memorial Home, that is the final cut. Probably my least favorite Pink Floyd album. I know that's not really a very controversial album. A lot of people don't really rate that album, but a lot of people actually do love it as well. It's quite of I guess, a divisive album, which I think everything after the war was quite divisive with Pink Floyd, within the band, and without the band. Comfortably Numb, Wall, When the Tigers Broke Free Again is the final cut. One of These Days, Metal, Us and Them, Dark Side, Learning to Fly, Momentary Lapse of Reason, Arnold Lane. What album was Arnold Lane on? Arnold Lane had a strange. I can't think what album it was on. It was their first single, wasn't it? And it's like 67. Okay, anyway, I can't think what album that was on. It wasn't on the Piper Gates of Dawn. Or maybe it was on the Piper Gates of Dawn. Okay, all right. Not important. Wish You Were Here, Wish You Were Here. Jug Band Blues is Source Full of Secrets. High Hopes, Division Bell, and Bike. That's Piper at the Gates of Dawn. So again, jumping all over the place. And I think they represent the Sid era pretty well, don't they? If you think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is it 6? When you think about the majority of their fame, not the majority, the vast majority of their fame was post Sid. Now, I guess because I grew up after that. I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and so Pink Floyd had, I guess, maybe a different thing to me. I wasn't there when they were at their height. And there was kind of a lot of Pink Floyd hate from a certain sector of people who just think they were like kind of the epitome of 70s dinosaur rock. I think Johnny Rotten wore a t-shirt on TV once saying, "I hate Pink Floyd," didn't he? So kind of punk rebelled against that, even though I think there were worse perpetrators of 70s dinosaur rock or prog rock than Pink Floyd, but they were kind of symbolic of it. And so a lot of people think, well, the Sid Barrett era was kind of before they kind of became bloated and overly commercial, and so they kind of long for that era and think that that was the true artistic peak of Pink Floyd. And a lot of people consider Sid Barrett to be like a genius, a musical genius. Whether he is or not, I don't know. I guess that's a personal thing. I've never really. I felt that the Sid era Pink Floyd stuff was always a little bit not dated, but it sounds like something made in the late 60s. Doesn't it? Or is that just me? When I listen to Dark Side of the Moon for me is one of the most timeless albums ever created. That could have been made at any time because it doesn't sound it is of any time. I guess sometimes some of the synthesizer effects on some of those songs, it can date it a little bit. They sound very early synthesizer technology, but the actual songs themselves, and again, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm putting my own personal feeling onto it too much. But I do prefer that run of Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, Animals, the Wall, to the pre Dark Side of the Moon stuff. Pre Dark Side of the Moon stuff, like Saucer Full of Secrets and Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and there's good stuff in there, but there's also songs that I think, yeah, not really my cup of tea so much. And I'm sure that, yeah, it might be blasphemous for a lot of Pink Floyd fans. I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm just saying in comparison. And then that's again the same for the stuff after Roger Waters left, the the David Gilmour era. I feel pretty much the same way about that. Is that some of that does sound quite dated and 80s-ish, but there's certainly some, I like it, and there's certainly some really good songs among it. But I certainly, using that word certainly a bit too much, I would absolutely not put it in the same league as Dark Side of the Moon through to the Wall. Those four albums are kind of, in my opinion, some of the greatest albums ever made, ever. And again, I don't think that's a particularly controversial opinion. Like Pink Floyd are one of the most popular bands in of our time. But anyway, one particular good example of the production fading and fading out, mixing the songs together, I think, is what they did with Us and Them and Learning to Fly. So, the album version of Us and Them, can't actually remember, I think it kind of, the tail end of it kind of tails on for quite a long time and then slowly fades out and then maybe onto the next track on Dark Side of the Moon. But what this does is they bring it to a close at a more abrupt thing with this kind of echo reverb. They kind of end it and it's echoing, reverbing on his voice, and then it does this, sounds like a descending, and it kind of dumps into the start of Learning to Fly, with that the drum comes in and the guitar. So the way it kind of crashes into it, I really like. It's like, like a good DJ can mix songs really well, kind of the way he chooses the songs, the points to mix them and fade certain ones in and out, get not just the beat right, but the point he chooses to fade it in or out, or fade something up or down. So yeah, I think that's probably a good example of what they were trying to do with this. And actually, I'm not sure if this is available on Spotify. I don't think it is. I think I checked specifically because now when I listen to Us and Them, I almost expect it to go, to dump into that Learn to Fly start because I like that version so much, the way they do it. And then one day I was listening to it on Spotify and I wanted to listen specifically to those two songs together, Us and Them and Learning to Fly. But I realized they didn't have it on Spotify. Obviously, they have Us and Them, the Dark Side of the Moon version, and Learning to Fly, the Momentary Lapse of Reason version, but they don't have the echoes faded in, produced, mixed version, which is one of the downfalls of Spotify. They don't often have some of the more obscure type things that you might be looking for. So yeah, it's a pretty good compilation and done in an interesting way. A good collection of music. I don't know who this would be for, really, though. Like I said, it's like yeah, I guess yeah, they're kind of casual fans. So many people own Pink Floyd albums. Like it's that thing that Dark Side of the Moon stayed in the top 100, the top 40 or the top 100 for like 20 years. It never left the Billboard one or whatever one, some country's chart. I think it was the Billboard 200, and it was present on that rating list, the sales list for like over 20 years or something crazy like that. It just continued to sell and sell and sell. I guess, with the different advents of technology, from vinyl to tape to CD, and then new generations that grow up and they appreciate Pink Floyd and it just sells and sells and sells. if I had to choose, not that this really got anything to do with this particular one, but if I had to choose a favorite song from each disc, that's kind of hard to do, isn't it? Actually, no, I can't do that. It's too hard. I don't know. It's impossible to choose favorite Pink Floyd songs, isn't it? There's so many. It's like choosing a favorite Beatles song or something like that. Just as an aside, I looked earlier, there was a list of rejected songs that James Guthrie and the band decided together what they would include or wouldn't include. Some of the songs they decided not to include were Interstellar Overdrive, Careful with That Axe, Eugene, Breathe, Dogs, Mother, Young Lust, Your Possible Past, The Gunner's Dream, and Paranoid Eyes, all from the final cut. So yeah, they already had two from the final cut. I think that was enough there. They had two from Division Bell as well, didn't they? Just as quickly looking at the booklet, apparently Storm Thorgensen did this as well, and it's meant to have pieces of all their past album art. So the Guy on Fire from Wish You Were Here, Axe, is that what an axe from Careful with That Axe, Eugene? It's not even on the compilation. Bike, that's the guy from, what's the album with the guy with a light bulb suit? It was in the 80s. Delicate something. I should look that up. Delicate. Maybe it's going to be in here. No. Delicate music? No, it's not delicate music. Delicate something. Anyway, what do we got over here? You see, I don't know. Maybe I'm not smart enough to pick out all the different clues and references. There's pigs there. Was there a pig there? Was that on the other one I saw a pig? Oh, there's a cow and pigs. Okay, so that's from animals. Anyway, inside we just got kind of examples from the different albums. They got the lyrics as well, and some just general liner notes. Oh, there you go. There's another one. Anyway, yeah, something that you never thought you'd really need, but they at least tried to approach it in a slightly original way, not just a bunch of songs together, but they are presented as one whole soundscape without anything in between. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for watching.